Calling to order the Anchorage School Board meeting. Today is Monday, December 4th, 2017. We have all board members present with the exception of Bettye Davis, also including our Student Advisory Board member. Let's all stand for the flag salute. Mr. Donley, would you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great job.
Hey, I am too. I realize I am too.
Okay, and we will move to our safety minute. And Andy Holleman, would you please read that?
I will. Thank you for being here tonight. In line with our Destination 2020 goal addressing safety and security, we share the following information. Restrooms are located at the far end of the hall directly across the atrium. An automated electronic defibrillator is located across the hall in a white box, and a first aid kit is mounted to the wall by the second exit. We do not conduct evacuation drills during our meetings, so if an alarm sounds or an alert is announced, it is a real event. Please begin to take safe action immediately. In the event we have to evacuate this building, 4 exit doors are located on your right and all have a lit exit sign over them. Once you enter the atrium, proceed quickly along the safest route to a door leading out of the building. If you do not have a vehicle here or it is unsafe to enter your vehicle and you need a place to wait for help, we have designated the parking lot next to the gas station as our rally point. If you see something that is dangerous, we encourage you to speak up and clearly alert the room of any danger you see. We encourage everyone to quickly begin to take safe action in that case. Information will be provided throughout the event as available so everyone can best decide the safest action to take given the current situation. We also have a monthly advisory for safety. This one relates to the holidays. Putting up decorations is one of the best ways to get in the holiday mood, but about 15,000 injuries involving holiday decorating are seen in the emergency rooms during the 2012 season. I don't know why we have such old stats, but that's got to be updated.
Still healing.
Always use a proper stepladder. Do not stand on chairs or other furniture. Lights are among the best parts of holiday decorating, but make sure there are no exposed or frayed wires, loose connections, or broken sockets. Do not burn candles near trees, curtains, or any other flammable items. Don't burn trees, wreaths, or wrapping paper in the fireplace. If you use the fireplace sporadically, ensure that it has been properly cleaned. Please see the table by the door where you came in for a more complete list of holiday safety tips, or visit the National Safety Council's website. And our list of tips looks like this. The ASD Safety Security Department, as well as the ASD Board of Directors, and all of our staff would like to wish the ASD community a safe and happy holiday season this year.
Thank you, Mr. Holleman. And Ms. Spencer, would you please, Ms. Marsett, would you please do our koyana?
Koyak, or listen, a Central Yupik word for thank you, is also the name of our site-based award of appreciation. Awards can be given to any employee or volunteer in recognition of achievement, service, or dedication. Koanas can be viewed or submitted by filling out an online Koana form through the ASD website. One Koana will be randomly selected from the website to be highlighted at bi-monthly board meetings. So our Koana goes out to, and I think this is Drea Whiteside Farrell at cafeteria. We are also fortunate to have Drea working with our staff and students. She has an incredible ability to connect with kids and let them know that she's an adult who cares about each child individually. She sets up chests and plays with kids who have finished lunch. She makes amazing works of art and decorates the cafeteria with them, allowing classes or kids to earn from them. She has a huge presence and makes the cafeteria a happy and fun place. The ANCCS staff and students, I guess that's who submitted the award. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Now, Ms. Spencer, our opening statement.
We want to welcome you to our board meeting and thank you for attending and supporting the work of the Anchorage School District and this board.
The board thanks students, parents, teachers, staff, school business partners, and the entire community for your investment in our district with your time, your talent, and your tax dollars. As partners, we will respect your time and make this meeting as effective and efficient as possible. If you are unable to be physically present for the entire meeting, you may choose to tune into the Municipality of Anchorage's Channel 9 or YouTube to watch the live stream. Recordings of meetings are also available through the agenda and board docs and are closed captioned in compliance with Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act. The primary purpose of the regular business meeting of the Anchorage School Board is to recognize excellence, receive reports, approve policies and contracts, as well as decide on the rules and processes followed by the board to facilitate orderly decision-making. The role is to govern, not to solve management issues. My name is Kaylee Spencer, and I'm the student representative for the board. I was elected to serve through the ASD Student Advisory Board. Although my votes are only advisory, I offer student voice to this body.
Thank you very much. We now move to approval of agenda. Board members, are there any objections to the agenda as is, or any changes you'd like to submit? Seeing none, the agenda is approved as is. We move on to public testimony on non-agenda and non-action items. The board welcomes public comments on agenda items, both the action and non-action, as well as in general. We value public comment as it both ensures that we remain aware of public thoughts, ideas, and concerns, and it informs our decision-making process. We have a table front and center with 2 seats and a microphone available for testimony when I call your name. You have 3 minutes to testify, and you may begin speaking when the timer appears on the screen to your left and begins the countdown. When you have 30 seconds left, the number will turn yellow. When the timer reaches 0, please finish your sentence. Thank you very much. First person we have on for testimony is Deena. Deena, I don't know how to pronounce your last name. Hekala. Thank you very much. And the other seat, I'd like to have Haroja Jawara come up and be ready to testify second in line.
Sorry. This one? Am I good? Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Oh, am I ready?
Okay, yes.
Sweet. Okay, it's Deena Hekala. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm here to discuss the failed tentative agreement with AEA. Quite honestly, for myself and many other school counselors, it was pretty insulting. The language implied that it didn't matter if we were in the building or not. Having flex scheduling for registration days instead of proper compensation is extremely difficult for those counselors that are left in the building and have already been reduced to bare bones throughout the last few years. When one of us is out of the building for long periods of time, it affects the success and, more importantly, safety of our students. I cannot tell you how many serious suicide interventions we've already done in our building alone. We had a sub-counselor for part of the first semester, and 2 things that he said that struck with me is you have an amazing counseling team and outstanding students, but man, there is such a need here. There was already a teacher who stated in the news, do you want me to be a teacher or a social worker? The language of flex scheduling will just now add to the stress of many other educators who already have overflowing plates. I'm also concerned because we just dump a kid on someone else because his or her support is gone. Are we truly honoring capturing kids' hearts and the essence of making connections, or are we just saying that they are numbers and connections don't matter? Some have said if we go to online, we won't be needed for registration. I will tell you, yes, we do. I worked in a state that has been doing online for over 10 years. It's not just a click of a button, it's more of a process. We were actually giving over 2 weeks at the beginning to ensure student success. I want to make sure that those who are making the decisions truly know the jobs we do and how it affects student success, and more importantly, their safety. I believe this and other reasons are why many voted down the TA, not merely due to money and greed. We want to feel valued across the board, all members of AEA. Planning time for teachers, manageable caseloads without massive testing for counselors, honoring the jobs that school nurses, OTs, PTs, etc. do, and giving time to see kids along with the massive paperwork. I am Tier 3, so let's get honest. There's not much keeping me and many other outstanding educators here except the amazing students that I get to work with daily. So one thing you can do is please don't devalue the work that each of us does in the hopes that we make a difference in the lives of our students. Please, I also ask, quit spending money outside the schools. We do not need any more consults, studies, new tests, etc. Teachers, OTs, counselors, nurses are breaking. We simply cannot do more with less. I urge you to look at the sick days this year. I guarantee they've gone up amongst staff and students. It's very sad to me. I know these are difficult times, but we can't keep saying the sky is falling, doom and gloom. I believe strongly that if we work together on behalf of our students, we can make a difference. I grew up in Anchorage. I received an amazing education because I had teachers and other staff who cared because they were giving the opportunity and the flexibility in their classrooms without testing and outside duties. There was art and outdoor adventures was experienced throughout, and testing was minimal with actual project-based learning. I loved it so much that I wanted to move back to Anchorage to bring my kids here. I now am talking as a parent, not only an educator.
Excuse me, Tina, can you wrap up because we're past the
Yes.
3.
Oh, I'm sorry. So basic thing is I want to make sure that all educators are loved, feel valued, and even so they can give love to our own kids. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. And I'd like to ask Cindy Mans to come up to the open seat, and I want to make sure I pronounced your name correctly. Was it Haroja? Yes. Thank you very much. As soon as you see the timer, yes, you may begin.
Good evening, Madam President and members of the school board. My name is Haroja Jawara, and I am the student body president of A.J. Diamond High School. As the only National Student Council of Excellence Award recipient in the state of Alaska, we strive to gain civic connections and learn more about the inner workings of our school system so that we can improve our student government and our school. Today, several members of the Diamond High student government with our advisor, Mr. Lem Wheelis, are present and eager to gain insight, and we proudly sponsor a proposal by one of our members, Geneva Luteria, who will be presenting later this evening during the SAV report. Thank you for allowing us to be here today and for all the work you do for our school.
Thank you very much for your testimony. You may begin.
Thank you for this opportunity to address the school board and administration. My name is Cindy Mans, and I'm a 28-year educator for ASD. I'm here to speak about the failed tentative agreement between ASD and AEA. I prepared this testimony for the school board meeting 2 weeks ago, but realized my words would not have an impact on the TA, so I waited. This is the 4th school board meeting I've attended this year and watched the rest from home. Teachers have been sharing their stories, and the AEA bargaining team has been telling ASD's team that teachers need more time and less stress. I'm hoping now, after the teachers spoke with their votes, that the school board and the central administration is finally ready to listen. I want to first publicly thank AEA's negotiation team. I appreciate the sacrifices they made for the 3,300 other members. I understand why they signed the TA in spite of the 0% added to the salary schedule. Part of the rationale was to lock the district into those language items which benefit members. However, I voted no on this TA. My no vote solely reflects my lack of confidence in this administration. AEA just accepted a 1-year extension for the 2016-17 school year in hopes that the state would move towards a fiscal solution. The district would budget for increases to the salary schedule. The district is telling the community that teachers have access to step and lane movement on the salary schedule, and therefore they are adequately compensated. However, no one talks about the $4,400 to $8,600 teachers pay out of pocket for tuition needed for a lane change. There is no lane change for credits above 90. I reached my final lane change in 1999, and none of the 30-plus credits I've taken since then have been recognized by the district. My current monthly take-home pay is only $18 more than in 2014 and less than 2015 and 2016. This step and lane movement in the salary schedule are no longer available to me. The district has showed what they value over their teaching staff. First, the central administrative staff was rewarded with salary increases upwards of 30%, and a new position of a deputy superintendent was added. In addition, the district has implemented a new grading system, a new K-2 reading program, a period day at middle school, and much more. Even last month, all elementary staff endured a training called Trauma-Informed Schools. The training may have been an epiphany to the central administration that we teach traumatized children, but it wasn't to us. We work with them day in and day out, building relationships. We're on the front line. I mentioned this latest training as another example of how out of touch the district administration is with its teaching force. Again, my vote of no on this TA was a vote of no confidence of this administration in light of the choices they've made in the last 5 months. I wonder where classroom teachers stand in the, quote, recruiting and retaining the right people, end quote. Deena Bishop, ADN, October 2nd, 2017. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. And that concludes our people signed up for public testimony. And we will move now. Excuse me?
We have some testimony, if possible. Just highlight.
2? Yes, come on up. Tell me your, and please state your name for the record.
Amanda and Sergey Kulikov.
Would you spell the last name, please?
Kulikov.
And we're here about 2 different issues.
Okay, 1 second. She'll get the timer ready.
Best to do it.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Board members, thank you for your time. My name is Amanda Kulikov. I'm a parent of 4 children that attend the Anchorage School District, 3 of which are in elementary school. I have come to testify about the playground safety equipment concerns that affect many of our preschool children, to include my own. Our preschool children seem to be limited on many things, ranging from field trips, outings within the school grounds, and now they're restricted from utilizing playground equipment. Our children seem to be locked up in the school and without any general population interaction. It is plain inequality for all our preschool children with developmental disabilities. And it hurts me to know that my son is sitting inside the school while his siblings are enjoying the outdoor activities with both within the school and in our community. It is my understanding that several meetings have taken place for an alternative activities and programs. Currently, these activities mainly range within the school and nothing that goes out, for instance, gym. And gym is prorated out to morning session and afternoon sessions. Morning sessions gets 2 days of gym time. The afternoon session only gets 1 gym time. Walking outside doesn't, Walking outside doesn't cost a dime. Adventures and imagination don't cost a dime. Listening to the birds outside doesn't cost a dime. So why is my child, our children, enclosed and locked up in our schools? And this is mainly for the kids that are preschool with developmental disabilities that I would like to address. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. And it was Serge?
Yeah, Serge.
Thank you, Serge. Okay. You may begin.
All right, thank you. My wife and I believe in procedure and everything, but from the actions of today, we have a problem with one of the staff members of Nunaka Valley, and we wouldn't be here addressing it to you guys if this wasn't an ongoing occurrence. Last year we addressed it to the principal, and this year we addressed it again. It happened at lunchtime. We were trying to go through the right way, addressing it, going through the paperwork, but
I'm going to interrupt
pressure.
Just for a second. If it's against a specific district employee, this isn't the proper subject for testimony.
I understand. Now, the big thing that we have on the plate is that with these ongoing actions, there's no surveillance in Nunaka Valley. There's no cameras there. So really, it's one word against another. And I mean, this individual, if you had seen this person talk to your child, you wouldn't be having that conversation. And I wouldn't be here if this person talked to children the way he did to mine. But we just want a little bit of pressure from the board to put on Nunaka Valley to do something about it, basically. And if there's any chance that you guys could put some kind of funding into surveillance or any kind of camera system in Nunaka, we'd really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much for your testimony. Okay, that concludes our public testimony. And we're going to move then to our reports. There is a military report on our agenda, but we were apprised earlier this afternoon that there will be no report this evening. So we will move promptly to the superintendent update. Dr. Bishop.
Thank you, Madam President. This evening's update is basically to recap our foundation formula as well as discuss our legislative priorities prior to moving into tomorrow's meeting with our legislators to gain feedback, but just general public knowledge of the items that are going to move forward. So with that, we did share in the work session the foundation formula, and it does have 6 steps. And the first step, of course, is the school size adjustment factor, and we'll get all of these up there. Let's get them. All right. And one thing I just want to point out is that in step 3, it does say vocational education, which was at the time the regulations called CTE vocational, and then when they put the CTE factor, they changed it, although it's for the same items. So we had a board member catch that. So, but the first one is the school size adjustment factor. And in regard to that, of course, we get paid differently for the size of the school, how many students are in it. When we look at this, really we're going to be asked the questions, what is ASD doing in regard to school capacity? And remember, when we mark student enrollment against a school size adjustment factor, it didn't benefit us, if you will, to merge schools. So we do have several schools that are under 60% capacity. Actually, I think probably a third of our schools are well under the capacity where we could actually look for efficiencies. However, due to the school size adjustment factor, you're paid by a school as a funding unit, not just a student. So it doesn't necessarily benefit us to move forward. And so part of our state legislative asks are to hold us harmless while we move through this efficiency movement. It also would affect how we operate with bonds and the structure, and how does that influence bonds. And again, once we have to pay for a bond, then a school becomes, to fund a school, the monies there then aren't as, it's not a significant savings to actually keep 2 schools open. When currently, any type of major maintenance or school bonds are paid for 100% locally, and it used to be 70-30 or 60-40. Now that it's 100%, we have to take a look at the overall tax structure and the cost of the municipality residents in regard to how that influence as well the local contribution, because it's increasing. So that really is our talk to the legislature about what we are doing about this, because at the state level, local level, and at the board level in all 3 different parts of government, we have been asked about school capacity decreasing and what are we doing for efficiencies. The school size adjustment does influence efficiency. We know that any student at a high school that has over 1,100, every student over 1,100 receives less funding per pupil. So I believe it's about 87 cents on the dollar once any student over 1,100 at a large scale high school. The other numbers for elementary schools and middle schools are also $7.50 as well as $4.50. So it does matter how we place students in schools. And then finally, really the bigger picture that we're looking at is what will ASD look like in 5 to 10 years. There was a mention today about, buying or having someone else come in to give you a consultant. Western Demographics is an example of a consultant that may not be understood. It's actually the more money that we put in to capital money that used to be paid by the state takes away from operational money that we pay for operating schools. The majority of operating schools is people, 90%. If we have to put our funds into capital because we're not using our buildings appropriately, that takes away from the classroom. Hence, if we look at a contract to have someone come in and help us in 5 to 10 years, right side where we are, we're looking at putting more money back into the classroom. The next is the school size or the area cost differential, and member Donley have spoken well on that. He has written, what do they call an editorial? A compass piece on that. And basically the question in this is that presently Anchorage is the #1. Anywhere else outside the state of Alaska, any school district, every school district is multiplied by a multiplier greater than 1 to account for the cost differences. And the question is Anchorage the least expensive place to live in Alaska? And many folks are questioning that it is not. And so the question here, and this part of the factor for which we're going to be speaking tomorrow, and to our legislators as we go to Juneau, is are we the one? And ICER, a local research agency at UAA, as well as half funded by the feds, will help answer that if the state chooses to look at this. Step 3 in the factor of how schools multiply their average daily membership to get their adjusted membership is called the special needs factor. And the 4 special needs that they actually fund directly for, although we have lots of interest in lots of things from our students, is #1, bilingual education, special education, gifted and talented, and voc ed education. And so what they've done is just say, you know what, we're going to pay 20% more. We're going to give you 20% more of an ADM for these factors. The question that we'd like to ask according to our legislative priorities is, students who attend one of our 3 correspondence schools, do those students have these interests? And if so, should the correspondence factor, which happens in step 5, be placed before step 3 so that they can take place in that 20% multiplier? Our schools of Family Partnership, Frontier, and Padea have students with characteristics or interest of those 4 special needs factors: bilingual, special education, gifted, and voc ed. The next factor is the CTE, which is a small multiplier, only 1.5%. That was given in our state about 3 to 5 years ago to identify the importance of career and technical education, whether it be tech apps or construction trades, ProStart, engineering at Diamond High. All of those are paid for by career technical funds. And so this is a benefit to all schools. So it's a small multiplier, but it turns 60,800 students to 61,712 students. And it's, again, a multiplier to create more ADM. The same question happens is, are those 4 schools that are our correspondence schools, rather, should they receive this as well and fall before the factor? I would like to note that ASD highly values career technical education opportunities and actually spends an additional money than just what is given in step 3 and 4. That we actually put some core operational money to more CTE for students because it's success. It's success after high school. And we do it on both the trade and professional side. So the state foundation formula, step 5, this is the one I talked about. If you are a correspondence student in the state of Alaska, you receive 90% of the funding. So it's 90 cents on the dollar, if you will. 21st century learning is dynamic and not defined by one model, and students in ASD's correspondence schools do actually meet at a site. We have buildings for all 3 of our charters that are correspondence. And really, correspondence students mirror our students in comprehensive high schools. They may be gifted, have special needs, ELL, and strive to participate in CTE. So again, the question is, should they receive 100% funding, as well as should they fall earlier in the factor? Many of our correspondence schools take at least one, correspondence students rather, take at least one course in a comprehensive high school. The future is about students and about their choice and how to create their learning experience that's going to get them where they next best want to be, and we want to support all students. And some of our students generate these funds to meet those needs, and some of them don't, because of the state, an antiquated state formula. So finally, step 6 is intensive needs factor, and this is students that are evaluated on 6 different criteria to be intensive needs, and those criteria outlined by the State of Alaska Department of Education. We just want to say thank you and acknowledge that costs due to meeting student needs in the least restrictive environment range well above the BSA to well above the multiplier. So even at 13 times, we have students to meet their FAPE or free and appropriate education. It is more expensive, but we take care of all of our kids. All 48,000 come to us, and we want to meet free and appropriate education for all of our students to move into their future. So these are some of the discussion points for which tomorrow that fall within our legislative priorities, and we matched them with the formula for a greater understanding, because some of our legislators aren't familiar with each piece of the formula and how those requests in the 3 Bs fall. So with that, the BSA is the base student allocation, you might hear, and which is 59,300. And what happens is we take the number of FTE, which are full-time equivalents, not enrollment, but full-time equivalent of students, and we move them through the factors, and they grow from an ADM to what's ending as an adjusted ADM, which is AADM, if you see that anywhere. So it looks like Anchorage School District has an adjusted ADM of 74,118 students, but we start with 45,647 FTE. If you look at our legislative priorities in regard to this, we are looking at increasing funding. We want appropriate funding so that we do not have to cut back. And there's testimony today about a contract. We reduced 140 employees of the Anchorage School District last year. We have 700 less students. We are in a fiscal crisis. And I would agree with the testimony that for too long, the sky has been falling, even when we had oil at $118 a barrel, the sky was falling for us, because really and truly, the legislature didn't want to spend it on school districts and necessarily education without a return on investment. They really asked us, what's the return on investment? Over time, we've defined that return on investment with successful kids, meeting their wishes to go to college or career, military, whatever that is, along with measuring their learning. And so we are asking again for appropriate funding. It is the same battle that went on 7 years ago when oil was at $118. Now the oil is, I'm not sure what it was today, around $50, and the state's running out of their savings account. So we will continue to ask for appropriate funding, because investing in education and investing in your future during times of recession is what works. So we are asking that also the funding is finalized by March 1st. Last year it was after June, and we had to scramble to understand if we were to receive less money and we had to find courses for kids, we needed to define which teachers should be in those courses, which kids needed, and it caused a layoff from the last day of school to, I believe, right after June, until we brought folks back, and they were able to go back into their jobs. Their insurance wasn't canceled, but it was a terrible thing to have happen in our community and the morale of our schools. The hold harmless clause is the school size factor, so that we can work out those efficiencies for which I believe Member Donley had placed that forward in the communications committee, that if we can really look to create efficiencies in our schools without being dinged, if you will, on per students, we can actually have some wiggle room to make those so that years 5 to 10 we can make them work for us to benefit us. We want to commission a new cost factor to just take a look at where is the least expensive place to live in the state of Alaska. So what would be the multiplier of the 1? Presently, we are the 1. And we all know that 1 times anything is that number, so that's us. And I almost died when I saw 0 under Jim's. Anything multiplied by 0, 0. So that's all fixed now, though. We need to amend the current language in the foundation formula for correspondence students. If we really look at 21st century learning, it happens anytime, any place, at any pace for kids. And so we want to have those come to fruition. The next factor is on busing. We just saw a pro forma budget that is going to take $3 million out of operations and place it into busing to cover all the busing we have. The state contracts for busing, the double minimum wage, the cost of escalating costs of the bus companies isn't keeping up, like the BSA with inflation. And to make ends meet and to meet those busing contracts, it is approximately $3 million to deal with. So we are looking to have the state pay for the actual costs of busing. Not all school districts have busing or transportation for their students, but those that do, we are asking that it is actually funded. And then finally, bond debt reimbursement. Again, the state prior to 2012, 2011, they went on a hiatus. Actually, was it like 2015? They went on a hiatus for bonding, which meant that they used to have a 70-30 program where the state would pay 70%, local government pay 30. It was a heck of a deal. I'll pay 30 cents on the dollar for anything. And 60-40 was also in there, and they had two different kind of protocols for each of those numbers, depending on how you wanted to build your building. And presently it is 0-100. 0 funding at the state level, 100% funding local level. So as you can see, we are increasingly requesting from our taxpayers a higher burden of taxing for education of our students in Anchorage School District. The reason that 70-30 and 60-40 was put into place, there are places, school districts in Alaska that are REAAs that are not incorporated towns or boroughs, and the state pays 100% of their building. So to look at the state in a fair, equitable manner, they had local governments pay for some and state pay for others. They made, the hiatus is actually 0% state funding for municipalities and boroughs. However, they still, through some litigation, are paying REAA's building out in some areas of Alaska. So we are looking to continue that program so that we can continue to take care of not only major maintenance, but other areas that we have for our over 100 buildings in ASD. So that is a recap of really the large information that ASD seeks to share with our legislators. Finally, I wanted to perhaps breach on a discussion of legislative support. Last year we did engage a lobbyist to assist us. Remember, there was a time when they wanted to cancel the state contribution and increase local contribution for past bonds, where the voters went to the ballot booth and thinking they were 70-30 or 60-40. They wanted to kind of renege on those, if you will, and we fought that battle along with some others in regard to school funding. Although sadly, we did feel that coming out without losing money at this present time in our state, without taking a reduction, was a win. It's not certainly looked at that from our employees, because that means that a COLA increase isn't established on a contract. But this year as well, do we look at legislative support? If yes, do we continue with the same firm? But there was a request also that perhaps we go out to an RFP for new. And I was just wanting some feedback from the board, whether it is at this point in time or just back to me at some time about how to move forward, unless, Madam President, you have would like the discussion here.
Well, I would like to open it up for any questions, first of all, on her presentation, and then any further discussion. Ms. Marsett?
I just want to say good job explaining the foundation formula. It's very complex. It's a lot of variables. It's a massive equation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are you wanting comment on
any aspect of her update?
So as far as the lobbyists, thank you. I did think it was a benefit because there are places that we couldn't get into as far as appointments with certain individuals in Juneau, and she was able to open those doors for us and get us in when there was an appointment available, and that we might not have been able to actually meet with those individuals, making our time constructive and more valuable, and she definitely had insight into kind of the goings-on and not being there and it being so far away. I think it's helpful to have somebody navigate that.
Madam President, there was a concern, and I'll bring it up, in regard to our lobbyists, just so that everything's out on the table, did represent other school districts. And with the types of items that we're bringing forward, do we want to ensure that our lobbyist isn't co-working with someone else? And that was just the question that was asked.
Mr. Donley?
Well, I would support an RFP process. I'm sure the administration can put together, a request for proposals and open it up for proposals.
I would agree with Mr. Donley in that respect. And yes, I do think it's important to find out what other districts, because in some cases, if we're pushing for us not to be the one, and this is the one case we don't want to be number one, that may be a conflict of interest if they're representing another district that might lose that status. So I think that's an important piece. I also know that when the legislative session kept going on and on and on, that's where we really got the value of our lobbyist who was there when things happened at the last minute, when the notice was very limited. And I really do felt had a great value in helping us to get our message across about our extreme displeasure, if that's strong enough, for the proposed further cuts, that work was being done into the wee hours all the way through June until that was definitively defeated. So I think that was well worth our money if you look at the millions of dollars that we would have lost in the result. Mr. Holleman.
And I was just going to say, I think a lot of times the public misunderstands what a lobbyist does for us, in the sense that they are providing information. Having someone that works for several school boards may make a lot of sense, that you want someone who is very focused on education issues and what's happening. To the degree we hire them to advance our position, that's a little different. But I'm not really sure we were doing that. I don't know. But yeah, I think especially in the late part of the session, the ability to have insight and information about what's happening in a really timely way makes a huge difference.
Madam President, we heard this evening in the Finance Department that there are a couple of manners in which we're looking at that through omnibus bills, they kind of put in legislation that can affect us. And one is on, the changing of the way that they calculate the basic need and the local contribution according to the state. And by changing a few numbers, they would actually increase local contribution, which could affect us in regard to local people having larger share, as well as in the retirement system, so that when there's continued action on the retirement system, especially past liability, a state paying that now, we're paying now, of course, for liabilities in the past, and if that increases along with our employees decreasing, that creates an issue and a problem with it. Again, takes money out of the classroom, and so just keeping an eye on these, I call them, just little ways to get a bill through, to change, some payments, keeping an eye on those tiny adjustments to present law is actually helpful as well. And that's what we did last summer. They were just minor changes.
Clarify, minor changes, but great impact on a dollar bottom line for us. So,
just the state struggling and looking for manners to help them as well. So, yeah. So I will take that feedback, and Madam President, I have one more item, which
I wanted to make sure I got everybody who had an opportunity. Did you want to speak, Ms. Snelling?
I guess I'll just say that, I've always believed that the best 7 or 8 lobbyists for us is, sitting right up here, but to the extent that we all can't be down there for, upwards of 200 days to watch what's going on, having somebody I do believe it needs to be the right person for the right price. Those are both two very critical pieces, so I support the idea, but I'd like to know a little bit more about that as it comes forward.
Okay, and you had another issue?
Yes, actually, Madam President, I'd just like to announce that we had a retirement in our special schools. Sue Doherty, is she here? I'm not sure if she's still here. She was here earlier, and we've hired her replacement, and he is going to be, is George Camp now here? If he could come forward and just introduce himself briefly to you. He is just so happens to be here right in front of all the students. I don't know if they knew he was leaving. And he was last week hired for the special schools principal, and I would like him to introduce himself. And he is obviously, since I let the cat out of the bag, an assistant principal at Diamond High presently.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the board members, Dr. Bishop and Dr. Johnson, for this great opportunity. I look forward to mentoring with Sue for her last 2 weeks as an Anchorage School District employee, and as she moves on to new adventures in life. I began my career with the Anchorage School District 27 years ago. I taught 21 years at Chugiak High School. My first decade as an English teacher, my second decade as a social studies teacher in the World Discovery Seminar program. I began my journey in administration at East High School, and for 1 year had a 2-year opportunity back at Chugiak in administration, and now working curriculum at Diamond for the past 2 years. As I said earlier, working with great kids like these, so it's been a great journey. And I'd also like to thank my wife of 36 years, Marilyn, who has been 100% supportive of my journey in the school district, and my 2 children who are graduates of the Anchorage School District, Ripley and Forrest. In fact, prior to this meeting, Marilyn and I had a great opportunity to reminisce with Susan Smith, who was our children's principal at Chugiak High School, and shared lots of fun stories and appreciate her support in helping our kids turn out to be the fine young folks that they are. So thank you again, and I look forward to serving the district for a number of more years. Okay.
Thank you.
Madam President, that concludes my superintendent report, unless there's further questions or clarity in regard to testimony that you'd like me to make.
Okay, we're going to move now to our Student Advisory Board Representative report. Ms. Spencer.
Okay, so the Student Advisory Board hasn't actually met since the last report I gave. Our next meeting will be held on December 7th, which is this Thursday at the ASD building. It'll be a morning session. And so in place of what happened at our meeting, I'd like to give a I'd like to present our resolution for a proposal on Filipino language classes in the Anchorage School District, and if the author would like to come up now and introduce herself, and then she can give her platform and read her resolution if she wishes.
Thank you. Could you please state your name and spell it for the record?
Hello, my name is Geneva Lateria, Geneva, and then Luteria.
Thank you very much. Okay.
So hello, my name is Geneva Lateria, and I'm here to present a proposal to introduce Filipino/Tagalog language classes in Anchorage. So I sought to create this proposal because of a simple story. In elementary school, one of my friends had attended bilingual classes due to their insufficiency in English in the first grade. It put him out of regular classes and taught him English for around half the school day or a single period or etc. The parents were called at home to specifically ask them not to speak Tagalog, not to let him hear any music, and not to watch any movies in Tagalog in order to preserve the English language. So by the 5th grade, he could no longer speak Tagalog. This is not a rare story, as more younger Filipinos are losing the language and are struggling to communicate with the older Filipinos, which is creating an unspoken division between them. I was not in the bilingual program, but many of my friends were, and they did agree to this, and there's also a paper written by Mr. Andrew Ponko in the University of Hawaii Manoa, who also reiterated this. So this lack of knowledge of not being able to speak prevents communication, culture, and tradition between the past and future generations of Filipinos. However, this is not only an opportunity for Filipino students, but all students. For those who want to study abroad, get credits, accomplish a seal of biliteracy, and are interested in Filipino language can. It draws in these people who know nothing about Filipino culture, and it spreads cultural values throughout Alaska. So a major benefit of allowing this program to happen is that Filipinos will be losing the language, of course. They'll be talking to their relatives, talking to their friends, talking in the languages that their ancestry taught in as well. And as the leading Asian majority in Alaska, non-Filipino students will also be able to have that accessibility themselves. Anyone can agree that simply learning a language in a classroom does not guarantee fluency. But the ability to communicate with people who already speak Tagalog is the next best thing we can do. So as the most diverse state, more initiatives should be taken to encourage this. And then I will slowly read off the resolution in front of us. Be it resolved by the Alaska Association of Student Governments, whereas Filipinos account for half of the total Asian population since 2014, whereas many young Filipinos cannot speak, write, read, or understand Filipino, whereas Advent Assessment's Advent World Speed program contains Filipino as a testing option. This would allow a Filipino class to qualify for credits and the seal of biliteracy, which would increase opportunities for all students. Whereas many schools and universities have created these classes for students. For example, the Olympian High School in California and the University of Hawaii Manoa both offer Filipino programs. Whereas 107 languages are currently spoken in the Anchorage School District, whereas there are only 9 world languages taught throughout the Anchorage School District, whereas the Anchorage School District is home to the top 2 diverse schools in the nation, East and Violet High School. Therefore, be it resolved by the Alaska Association of Student Governments that a Tagalog class should be created in whichever school would like to pilot this program. Action statement: this resolution, if passed by the General Assembly of ASAG, will be sent to the following. So the 3 organizations below, well, 2, and the ASAG committee of 500 to 600 delegates, they all approved this resolution, and in front of you should be the letter of supports given by these organizations for approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The board member have any question or comments? No. Thank you very much. And thank you all for being here in support of your fellow students. It's appreciated. Is there anything further in your report? Okay.
And the final item of our report is something that all of the board members are pretty familiar with. This was Daniel and I's brainchild from the AASB conference that we attended. One of the workshops we went to actually inspired it, in which we had to address a concern within our own communities and then pick goals which we thought would help move towards the solution of this, or just a way to attack this as a community. This is the creation of the ASAP ad hoc committee within the Student Advisory Board that I brought up last week. We just wanted to give you our finalized resolution for that and the proposal for the Carnival for Change this coming summer. So if Daniel could come up and read those.
And could you restate what the acronym stands for, ASAP?
So ASAP stands for Alaskan Suicide Prevention Program.
Awareness Project.
Oh, Awareness Project, sorry. Okay. And Daniel can go in and read that now.
All right, so hi, for those who don't know me, I'm Daniel John. I'm a junior at South Anchorage High School, and I'm the vice president of the Student Advisory Board here in the Anchorage School District. So to start off, I'm going to give a report about what I basically have been doing and what this program will be doing as itself and the project. So the state of Alaska has the highest suicide rate per capita in the nation. We are establishing the Carnival for Change because of the effects that suicide has on our communities, our families, our teachers, and so many others. We are proposing that the Anchorage School District Student Advisory Board to take charge of Carnival for Change. As we develop this project, the predominant issue teens are facing within our community is suicide. So as if a larger issue were to rise, then in coming years, people have the opportunity to change our theme to reflect those issues. For example, unhealthy relationships, drug abuse, and etc. The sole purpose of Carnival for Change is to address the most prevalent issue teens are facing at the time. And celebrating life through suicide awareness is our first theme to be incorporated with the start of our annual Carnival for Change. Our theme, Celebrating Life Through Suicide Awareness, is designed to teach and inform the community about the reality of suicide and to heal the suffering in our community, which stems from suicide by instituting and applying policies against interpersonal violence, discrimination, and bullying, while also promoting a culture where members of the community turn to each other for love and support. We propose that the Carnival for Change be an outdoor event. Our reasoning for an outdoor fair is based on the philosophical movement in the early 19th century, Transcendentalism. There are several tenets to Transcendentalism, and the nature component is a tenet we would like to implement. Ralph Waldo Emerson said in his book, Nature, "But if a man were to be alone, let him look at the stars. The rays that come from those heavenly worlds will separate between him and vulgar things." The event is a carnival like the Alaska State Fair, Bear Paw, Ferrandi, and etc. The attractions will symbolize our ongoing theme, Celebrating Life Through Suicide Awareness. The project will be teaming up with local, national, and international organizations, businesses, and corporations to help sponsor Carnival for Change. Local artists will also be a part of the event as they will be performing to the crowd who want to make a change in today's society. They will be performing songs and covers that incorporate our relentless theme. Varieties of workshops will be organized to teach our communities about suicidal signs and how to observe them before it's too late. Keynote speakers will also be incorporated into this event where they will tell the audience about their traumatic experiences they've been through, and numerous things need to be completed to launch Carnival for Change, and the first step starts with your support. And that's like my platform for this Carnival for Change. And to start off, our resolution. This is our first resolution we brought to Student Advisory Board, and what it is to implement Carnival for Change within our Student Advisory Board in Anchorage School District. And it passed unanimously, and I guess I'll read it to you guys. So, implementing Carnival for Change in our community. Be it resolved by the Anchorage School District Student Advisory Board, whereas Carnival for Change will be an annual community event that will revolve around addressing the most prevalent issues teens are facing at the time. Examples, suicide awareness, substance abuse, and healthy relationships. Whereas specific events of the Carnival will be determined by the year's Carnival for Change Board of Directors through Anchorage School District Student Advisory Board. Examples of events include keynote speakers, workshops, and representatives from local and international organizations. Whereas date and times can be determined by the Carnival for Change Board of Directors. Whereas hosting a community event based on issues faced by today's students, we build trusting relationships and a community that supports its youth. Whereas offers a host of economic and social benefits to communities and organizations. Whereas carnivals foster community pride, teach people new things, and strengthen relationships. Whereas carnivals promote local businesses and organizations. Whereas experts agree hometown pride is a critical factor of the development and improvement of any community. Whereas whatever a festival's theme, it's bound to be instructional and visitors will learn from it. And whereas educational experiences help visitors connect to the local area. Therefore, be it resolved by the Anchorage School District Student Advisory Board, Carnival for Change will be created into an ad hoc committee in the Anchorage School District Student Advisory Board and be brought to ASA. Action statement. This resolution, if passed by the members of the Anchorage School District Student Advisory Board, will be sent to the following, and it's a list of people we are sending out our resolution to, as in Dr. Johnson and the school board and etc. And then this was our first resolution. Oh, Kaylee, you want to say something?
No. I was just wondering if you guys wanted us to read the other resolution that was attached to this. It's the one that we had pulled up earlier. It's the one that goes into more detail about the actual committee itself. And I didn't know if you guys were interested in hearing about the committee itself or if you just wanted to hear more about the project that the committee will be doing.
More about the project.
Yeah. Okay, so you can just continue with the project.
What? The next resolution?
Yeah, you can just do the next.
Okay, so we have one more resolution, and this resolution was to incorporate the theme, Celebrating Life Through Suicide Awareness, because as we were talking about, we want teens to be able to show what issue teens are facing. So this is an issue teens were facing within our time, and that's why we decided to write a resolution so it would be fair and even for, as in, et cetera. You know what I mean? So, Carnival for Change theme proposal, resolution number 2. Be resolved by the Anchorage School District Student Advisory Board, whereas Alaska has the highest rate of suicide per capita in the country. Whereas this is a critical problem that needs to be addressed as soon as possible. Whereas a study found in 2007, Alaska's rate was 21.8 suicides per 100,000 people. Whereas the rate of suicide among Alaskan Native population in the year of 2007 was 35.1 per 100,000 people. Whereas in the Eagle River Chugach area, within the last year, 6 students have taken their own lives. Whereas suicide deaths consistently outnumber homicide deaths by a margin or 3 to 2%. Whereas more than 90% of people who die by suicide have depression or another diagnosable, treatable mental or substance abuse disorder. Whereas suicide is the 3rd leading cause of death among individuals between the age of 10 and 14, and the 2nd leading cause of death among the individuals between the ages of 15 and 34 in the United States of America. Whereas by prioritizing and supporting social connections among students, schools acknowledge that young people are likely to turn to their peers first during times of distress. Whereas the workshop based on the theme will teach peers, family, faculty, and community members on how to identify students in distress, intervene with them, and refer them to professional help. Whereas by making our theme, the Carnival for Change, Celebrating Life Through Suicide Awareness, Anchorage, our community, will be designed to teach and inform the community about the reality of suicide and to heal suffering in the community that stems from suicide by instituting and applying policies against interpersonal violence, discrimination, and bullying, while also promoting a culture where members of the community turn to each other for love and support. Whereas, if you are ever in a crisis, call the toll-free National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK-8255. Therefore, be it resolved by the Anchorage School District Student Advisory Board, the theme for the Carnival for Change will be Celebrating Life Through Suicide Awareness, and it will be created into a separate committee in the Anchorage School District Student Advisory Board. An action statement, this resolution, will be sent to the following members, and it's the same list as before.
Thank you very much. Do any board members have any specific questions, points of discussion? Ms. Marsett?
So, Daniel,
Hi,
how are you?
Good.
So one of the things that you had talked about when you were talking about this was this being an annual type of thing, and it's still being called the carnival, but
Yep.
each year would take on a different topic. Is that still
So,
your intent? Intent?
Okay, so what we're basically saying is we're calling it Carnival for Change because for teens or issues teens are facing within the time. It could be celebrating life through suicide awareness for like, say, 7 to 8 years. And then if another issue arises, then we can change the theme. We can write a resolution and implement that theme and change the committee, the ad hoc committee name into representing that, our ongoing theme. So that's why we're calling it an ad hoc committee for ASAP ad hoc committee, if that explains your question.
Excellent. Well, I just want to congratulate you. I was there when the idea was
Yes.
hatched, conceived, and to see the progress you've made in just a month is quite impressive. So thank you very much for your hard work on this. And I think the board and administration will look at this further and get back to you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Did you?
And with that, I conclude my report for tonight.
I just have one final thing to add for SAB consideration or reminder. An email was sent to the SAB Gmail account, and I want to make sure that it went out to students explaining the application procedures for SAB students to accompany board members to Juneau. If you wouldn't mind doing that reminder at your next meeting, the deadline is midnight, Friday, December 15th for application. So thank you very much. That concludes that part of our report. We move to board committee reports. I don't believe we have any conferences. Oh, I take that back. Would you like to speak on the Restorative Justice Conference first prior to our committee reports?
Yeah,
or you want to do that in the next?
I think we're having, in our work session, we're going to be talking about that, so I'm going to hold off on my report.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll move to governance. Ms. Plunkett.
We met last on the 14th of November, and after that we have had a meeting, but we will meet we will meet on the 6th of December on Wednesday from 3 to 5, and what we are reviewing and going over will be instruction, the 6,000s, and then we'll meet again on the 13th of December to finish up the 6,000s, and then we have some revisions of the 4,000s for the personnel that we need to go over. And then we will hopefully get everything done in those 2 meetings, and we will be done.
With the committee work, but we're not done.
With the committee work. I'm excited.
It's been we're in month 8, I believe, of this project.
I don't know, but I just want to thank the administration because it's taken a lot of time. And thank you all, because it's involved everyone.
Yeah, but well worth the work. Yeah. So. Okay, I'll move to legislative. Communications.
Yes, Madam Chair, before I begin, I just wanted to thank Member Plunkett for the hundreds of hours of work she's put into that project. So just thank you very, very much.
Thank you. It's going to save us money, which as well as make it more transparent, which means we can spend more money on all of you that are out there, which is what our goal is.
Thank you. Communications met November 14th. We haven't met since that last meeting. Tomorrow we have our legislative priorities briefing at the LIO office from 11 a.m. to 12:30, which there will be, some of us will be getting together here tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. also to talk about that. One of the things that I think has really been good is working with the administration. We've come up with a new fast facts flyer. If the members haven't seen it yet, I think it's still a work in progress, but it really I think is going to be incredibly useful in interacting at public meetings and with our legislators. And the community update, in my opinion, continues to be very, very popular at all the meetings I attend, and I'm very, very grateful that that's rolling now, and is the committee is continuing to refine the content of that also. So I think these are significant improvements with our communication to the public and to other public officials.
And I'll just add a special thank you to Catherine Essery and her team for their assistance in getting these things done, and having patience with the committee as we make revision after revision to try to make it perfect. Okay. And now finance.
The Finance Committee met today. We did a quick run through of the CAFR, the draft CAFR. We're still waiting for our final letter from BDO. We'll probably take one last review through it in January before it gets forwarded to the full board for final approval. And we did a quick review through fund balance projections through the end of the year. And so we've got that as well. It does say potential meeting on December 18th, probably going to not do that and look forward to having one of the first board meeting in January. I don't know what that date is.
8th. Monday the 8th. Okay. I do believe so. That's the first day back after our winter break. So. Okay, that concludes our board conference and committee reports. We move to our consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda, September 25th, 2017 work session and executive session minutes, ASD memorandum number 092, personnel report.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Board members, please vote. And the motion carries 6 yea, 1 not present at vote. So we now move to action items, and we will also open up for some public testimony. The procedure for agenda items are as follows. An action item memo is first introduced by the Vice President, and if seconded by another board member, I'll open the floor for public testimony. If you signed up in advance or you indicate you're interested in providing testimony, I will call you to come to the front table to speak. You have 3 minutes to talk, and you'll see a timer on the screen to your left to monitor the time remaining and inform you when you need to conclude. After all testimony closes, I will open the floor for a board discussion, followed by the student board representative vote before finally calling for the official vote. The voting results will be displayed on the screen.
I move, excuse me, I move to approve ASD Memorandum Number 095 and adopt the attached resolution supporting the Welcoming Anchorage Initiative.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. So I will now open public testimony. We do have a speaker signed up. Mr. Neese, please come to the table. Yes, we each have a copy of
All right.
papers.
I was happy to see you raise the BSA to $65,300 when you talked. It was $65.30 on the screen, but we all went, wow, that's great. So anyways, you have in front of you, as you go through things on the board, you have resolutions and you have action items. Resolution on this one's kind of interesting, has a long history. 2014 was introduced by Mayor Sullivan. And one of the things that I found interesting about it is it's in the category of wishes, wants, philosophies more than an actual need. So I'd like to point out a couple things in your whereases. It says, whereas the municipality of Anchorage is among the most ethnically diverse municipalities in the United States. You might have missed the Charles Warforth article. I've included a copy of it where he pointed out that the UAA professor, and that's on the second page, the second, third, and fourth, where he said, yeah, I didn't really mean that, and everybody seems to be running with it like a trophy, but we're not really that ethnically diverse. So your first whereas is maybe questionable. Your second one, the municipality is home of the most diverse neighborhoods, falls in the same category with East and Bartlett, according to his statistics and his statements, possibly have changed on that. So you might want to consider striking those two. The fourth one talks about the Deena and Athabascans. They just call themselves the Deena. If you look at your page that I gave you, it talks about the fact that the Point Warrensdorf, Point Campbell area was actually where the last battle between the Alutiiq Indians that were doing raiding parties on the Nick Indians occurred, and that's where they killed the people, took their canoes, and took them as slaves. So when you say it's a welcoming area, yeah, it's sort of a welcoming area as long as you're not planning to live here, because they'll attack you. It's their ground. And that has pretty much been the history of the area. So it's welcoming if you're thinking of the philosophy of like, we'll let anybody in, that's great, we're going to make you part of the family, we're fine. But what purpose does it serve? Your goals in the board are to set a clear direction for the district. Is this a clear direction for the district that you want to be welcoming? To empower the superintendent to interpret and manage the district. Is this going to have any cost to you? There's no mention of a cost, so it must not have any cost at all. Develop and adopt policies and budgets. This is a policy, but not really a budget. So it's been a while. Two of you were not on the board when this was adopted. You came in last year. It might be time to reconsider it, take a look at it. It has a lot of political connotations to it. And if you want to make a political statement, you're well and welcome to do that. But if it's what you think is best for education of students in Anchorage, it should be taking up the time of the board. Otherwise, it probably should be things that are education and money. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. And now I'll open for, was there anyone else who cared to testify from the audience? Seeing none, then public testimony is closed. Board discussion is now open. Mr. Donley.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I move an amendment to the resolution. Provided it to the clerk. Pass out copies. It would add between the 11th and final 12th whereas, 2 additional whereases. That would relate this resolution much more to the educational component that's involved, and also be consistent with the testimony that was given regarding this resolution. I think it was 2 meetings ago.
And would you like to read those?
Be whereas one of the goals of Welcome Anchorage is to encourage assimilation of new legal immigrants into our community by educating them regarding our civic processes, and whereas the successful assimilation to our American culture, heritage, and language is a factor in immigrants completing more years of schooling, earning more, and being less likely to be unemployed than their counterparts, and then it would continue on. It also includes a footnote from Stanford University Public Policy Program article treatise, What History Tells Us About Assimilation of Immigrants, and references its site on the web.
He hasn't moved it yet. We're still in discussion.
Oh,
Okay.
I would so move. It's
well, before you make that motion, I was going to suggest that you change welcome to welcoming, because that's the accurate.
Okay. I would so adjust the amendment.
So that's an amendment. Do I have a second? It's been moved and seconded. Discussion now open. Any questions? Seeing none, then we will move for voting on this item, and then we'll open it up for any final questions on the overall motion. So I'll ask for our student advisory vote first.
Yay.
Stars. And the motion passes 6 yea and 1 not present at vote. Now we open up for any further discussion on the main motion. Yes, Mr. Holleman.
Through the chair, I will ask the superintendent, has this been a major budget item in the year and a half that you've been superintendent? Have we expended very much in funds on this?
Through the president to Member Holleman, no.
Okay. I would like to move that the first sentence, the first whereas, we make some very small tweaking of the language and say, whereas the municipality of Anchorage is a ethnically diverse municipality in the United States, not to basically delete the term the most, among the most. So whereas the municipality of Anchorage is an ethnically diverse municipality in the United States. Or if we want to clarify either one of the.
Second.
I didn't get a vote language.
Is there any other discussion on that?
Is one of the most?
No.
No, is one of the, okay.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, ask for our student advisory vote.
Yay.
And all board members, please vote. And the motion passes 6 yea, 1 nay. And now we vote on the main motion. Open for discussion, yes.
Here's my question on the, so we've got all the whereases in place now. So that be it further resolved that what we're, saying that we support the continued participation of Anchorage School District employees in the efforts of the Welcoming Anchorage Initiative. I guess it's maybe a two-sided question. What are our employees doing in support of this initiative specifically that we would do differently if either that wasn't in existence, or I guess what are we specifically doing?
Dr. Bishop.
Through the president, I can, to Member Snelling, I would have, this was a request from our group, MECAC, to request that we support this. We have employees who participate on the Welcoming Anchorage group, specifically this pillar for education, and we're just partners with identifying, one of the topics that was discussed was just having an open door. So do we have practices that lead to closed doors when we don't even know it? So we're taking a look at our practices and policies to ensure that when we support kids through schools and parents, to support their kids through schools. So we're just having another lens with a partnership. And I think I can request Matt Tieford, who directs the MECAC, if there are any other discussions, but it's really like any other partnership that we are in partnership to support Anchorage and the school district as, welcoming kids for education. So, Mr. Tieford, would you have anything to add in regard to that? I was at that meeting where this was a request, and basically that's it. It's basically a partnership.
I'm Matt Tieford, EEO Compliance Senior Director. I don't know that I have much to add other than to emphasize that it was the MECAC committee that was receptive to Mr. Martinez's presentation to the group and his ask that the group forward a resolution for the board's consideration. There was, as Dr. Bishop indicated, some discussion around the 5 pillars, including the education pillar, and the continuing efforts of school district personnel led by Katy Bisson from the ELL department to assist the municipality in moving this forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the explanation. Any further discussion? Okay, in closing discussion, student advisory vote.
Yay.
Board members, please vote. And the motion carries 6 yea, 1 not present at vote.
I move to approve ASD Memorandum Number 083 and authorize the superintendent to accept a grant from the Alaska Department of Education and Early Development deed in the amount of $96,800 for 4 Anchorage School District alternative schools, Avail, Benson, Crossroads, and Save.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Now opening for public testimony. Not seeing anyone indicating interest in testifying, I'm closing public testimony, opening board discussion. Closing board discussion, student advisory vote.
Yay.
Board members, please vote. Dave hasn't come through. Dave, yours hasn't come through. Motion carries 6 yea, 1 not present at vote.
I move to approve ASD memorandums number 084 and authorize the superintendent to accept a grant from the Alaska Department of Education and Early Development deed for McLaughlin Secondary School school-based transition services in the amount of $104,916.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I'm opening for public testimony. Closing public testimony, opening board discussion. Closing board discussion, student advisory vote.
Yay.
Board members, please vote. Motion carries 6 yea, 1 not present at vote.
I move to approve ASD memorandum number 085 and authorize the superintendent to accept 3 continuation grants award from the Alaska Department of Education and Early Development for a total of $1,475,000. Funding will continue 21 first century community learning centers, after-school programs at 9 elementary schools, 1 charter school, and 1 middle school through the 2017-18 school year.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded, opening for public testimony. Closing public testimony, opening for board discussion. I do indeed have a question for the administration. With the potential of federal funding being changed or reduced, I want to know what our obligation is if we begin in any of these programs. Do we have an obligation to continue if funding is not cut, or would there be a expectation from our community in these programs that potentially could impact our operating budget?
Madam President, your last question is affirmative. Of course, there'd probably be an expectation. However, all of our contracts are made that without funding, they don't. There's always a clause in every contract for the school district that if the funds do not come through, that it can be canceled. We could discuss further. I could have Patrick Garrity come up, but that's a potential for any grant at any time.
So if the federal funds were exhausted or would not carry for the full 3 years, or is this a definitive for that hunk of time?
Could Patrick Garrity come up and speak to this?
Well, I'm Patrick Garrity, the Senior Director of Federal Programs, and this is Libby Connor, who is our 21st Century, she leads up our 21st Century program. So as I understand it, when we have these multiple-year grants, they're a commitment by the state and the federal government to continue them. So I see them going on, but as each grant wraps up, and they do wrap up in different years, there's the chance that it would not be renewed, or that a new grant would not be given, and we could lose sites.
Okay. And then I have the explanation on the contract, so I appreciate that.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other further board discussion? Closing board discussion, student advisory vote.
Yay.
Board members, please vote. And the motion carries 6 yea, 1 not present at vote.
I move to approve ASD memorandum number 091 and authorize the superintendent to accept a grant from the State of Alaska Department of Education and Early Development deed. Grant amount of $1,111,139 and ASD participating share of $598,305 for a total amount of $1,709,444 for the Rogers Park Elementary School roof replacement project.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I'm opening for public testimony. Closing public testimony, opening for board discussion. Mr. Donley.
On behalf of the citizens of Anchorage and the taxpayers, I want to thank the administration for the hard work that went into obtaining this grant. Congratulations. I have a lot of experience in this particular area. In fact, modified the state law that used to really discriminate unfairly against Anchorage schools, and so I know how hard this, how hard you work to do this. So, thank you very much.
Great team. Thank you. Thank you to the team.
Ms. Marsett.
I just have a question of where the $598,305 is coming from for our share.
Madam President, I'll request follow through from Tom Roth.
President, to Member Marsett, the Rogers Park roof project was a project on the 2017 bond, which was approved by the voters. So that residual amount will come from that bond authorization.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Closing discussion. Advisory vote.
Yay.
Board members, please vote. And the motion carries 6 yea and 1 not present and vote.
I move to approve ASD Memorandum Number 076 and authorize Family Partnership Charter School to enter into a lease with Cross Point Church as set forth in the proposed lease.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Opening for public testimony. Closing public testimony. Opening board discussion. Ms. Snelling?
Is Family Partnership adding to their current location? Are they moving a location? And this lease dates back to August 21st. So they have they already moved and now we're just doing this, or what order are we going in?
Sure. Madam President, I'll call up Dave Whiting to comment on the lease.
Thank you. I'm Dave Whiting, Senior Director, Purchasing Warehouse. Through the chair to Member Snelling. In this case, we found they were at this location, and there appeared to be somewhat of a misunderstanding that they didn't really understand they had a long-term leasing proposition going. So when purchasing found out about it, we worked with Daryl Vincic to get them back into compliance by codifying a lease.
This is their only location. Are they no longer on
They have offices in one facility, but this is their location with students.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? In closing board discussion, student advisory vote.
Yay.
Board members, please proceed to vote. Motion passes 6 yea, 1 not present at vote.
I move to approve ASD Memorandum Number 070 and authorize the superintendent to dispose of the listed surplus property by sealed bid, public auction, or other means as practical in accordance with Board Policy 732.1.
Second.
So moved and seconded. I'm opening for public testimony. Closing public testimony. Board discussion is now open. Closing board discussion. Student advisory vote.
Yay.
Please vote. Motion carries 6 yea, 1 not present at vote.
I move to approve ASD Memorandum Number 078 and authorize the superintendent to dispose of the listed surplus property by sealed bid, public auction, or other means as practical in accordance with Board Policy 732.1.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. I'm opening for public testimony. Closing public testimony. Board discussion is now open. Mr. Donley.
Madam President, the Assembly Chair approached me at a community council meeting we were recently at and expressed a need by the municipality of Anchorage for a relocatable. And I was wondering if this is related to that or if that communication has been received by the superintendent.
Madam President, this is not that relocatable, and I have not heard that, but we generally have many relocatables. So we can, Tom Roth can contact the city. This is actually a relocatable that is being used by the program. So we went ahead and let that program
purchase that,
or
through this resolution.
Through this resolution, yeah.
Okay, any other questions or discussion from board members?
But we will follow up.
Thank you. Discussion's closed. Student advisory vote.
Yay.
Board members, please vote. Motion carries 6 yea, 1 not present at vote.
I move to approve ASD Memorandum Number 073 and authorize the award of a contract for the purchase of 16 Type D school buses to RWC International Limited. The award to RWC International Limited is recommended in the total contract amount of $2,069,248. The projected annual payment on a 10-year loan through the master tax-exempt lease purchase agreement is estimated to be $250,000.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Opening for public testimony. Closing public testimony. Board discussion is now open. Closing board discussion. Student advisory vote.
Yay.
Board members, please vote. Motion carries 6 yea, 1 not present at vote. That concludes our action items. We move to non-action items. Are there any that board members wish to pool for discussion? Mr. Donley.
Sorry, Starr.
Go ahead.
Number 75, I had a question about on page 2, TF 000027 for $158,000. It seems like there's more than one element to this transfer. Part of it's for funds for cash receipting software, and another part of it seems to be for the Capturing Kids' Hearts training. And I was wondering if I could get information with what the breakout there is.
Dr. Bishop?
Sure, Madam President, we can, do you have those numbers with you today, or should we report?
I do have the numbers.
Okay.
It was $150,000 went to the cash receipting software. Potentially, if we, depending on the cost of it, that's about our estimated cost. And then another $8,000 was for the funds to purchase, or the lunches for the Capturing Kids' Hearts.
Yes.
You know, I've learned that the administration's really good at buying things. You guys get a good buy usually. Wow, that just seems like a lot of money for software. I guess I just don't. I'd be very interested in learning more about that software.
Madam President, we can present that. It was part of our business process review to go to that cash accounting. We certainly have lost more money by theft and internal theft than the $150,000 so over the years. So we will certainly, it's gone through the finance committee, the sharing of that, and I believe a work session would be great to demonstrate the cash accounting. Basically, we're going to provide parents opportunity. We just don't want to be a cash establishment anymore. We want to allow parents to be able to pay online, teachers to receive online, so that there actually isn't any cash in our offices to have to handle. We want to almost reduce that. So we'll certainly demonstrate that, and we'll make a request. I'm not sure when it's going to be purchased so that we can demonstrate the one, but we'll get that back at a work session.
Mr. Donley?
Madam President, I think it's very brief, the explanation of it. It was simply purchase online cash receipting software, and now I think I know what it is. It's the going to all the schools to, yes, okay, I remember that issue.
Yeah,
I just
sorry.
didn't pick that up
Yeah.
from the very brief explanation of what it was for here.
Yeah.
So I can understand how that's a much larger, not just in one location, it's going to be in many locations.
Yes, and it was discussed at the finance department, and this is just, reporting the movement of the funds to be able to afford things. So, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Marsett?
I also want to comment on this one, but I also want to pull memorandum 90. But on 75, I have a couple of questions.
Can you state specifically which one you mean? Which item?
Special education, elementary. The date is 6/26/17.
Yep.
Okay. First of all, special service teacher. What exactly is that?
Special services is special education.
Okay. Yet we have others that say special education teacher, so it's not the same thing?
I will ask for clarification, but it could have just been a typo.
Through the President, to Member Marsett, that object code 1360, the special service teacher, encompasses other teachers other than special ed. We have ELL and gifted teachers that are coded to that object code as well.
Okay.
In reference to the transfer, it was moving funds to pay as we couldn't hire all the special service teachers that we needed throughout the year. We hired substitutes and other extra help, and this was just at the end of the year to transfer those funds out to true up those balances.
So my next question is, what is extra help classified and extra help certified if it's not TAs or substitute teachers or a regular classified teacher?
Yeah, through the President, that's temporary help. Those other teachers assistant codes, those are used as full-time permanent employees, and then we use these codes for temporary help, essentially.
Okay.
And if they come back as certificated or classified, we have to separate them out so our payroll will process correctly.
Okay. And then my next question is dated 6/30/2017. It's on the same page, and it says the budget transfer reallocation funds from non-departmental pending negotiations, property insurance, liability insurance, and custodial contracted services, fuel, repair parts to various accounts, salary and benefit accounts. The transfers covered the exempt salary increases during the second half of the fiscal year. 2016-17 funds were also included to cover the increased hours from 0.7 to 1.0 for the position of Administrative Projects Director and the addition of the Deputy Superintendent and addition of Operations Director. So I'm confused on this because we saved money by eliminating positions, right, to pay for these? And yet we're taking funds from other departments. I mean, maybe I'm not understanding something.
Madam President, it is due to the codes. So the codes and the chart of accounts are very specific through the Vice President. But I'll have Mr. Ratliff describe the process.
Right, and while we did have savings in those other areas, we took it out of that 1,000, the pending negotiations account, because we had the budget authority there to move out instead of making a transfer from, what would have been 50 or 60 other individual lines from these other positions and benefits that were cut. We had the budget authority to take it out of that one line item. So more than anything, it was a matter of efficiency to get these trued up at the end of the year rather than decrementing the actual accounts that paid for it. And it all kind of washes out when we look at our attrition and what's left over at the end of the year.
I think it looks misleading, a little bit of where we're taking this money from where it's actually, we've told the public where it's coming from. So, I mean, it might be easier to understand for county, but I think it's misleading. The other thing is budget transfer. Let me see. Nope, I think that was it. And then on...
Hold on. Is there anything else on this memo before we move to a different memo? Okay, which memo?
90. Allocation of additional teacher assistant FTE for special education.
Yes, Ms. Marsett, go ahead.
So we are taking these funds from general fund fixed charges pending contracts to transfer them to special education teachers, assistants, and benefits. What I don't understand is, those funds for special education and for intensive needs all went into general fund, and if those funds are allocated for other things also, but they are also allocations for special education, why are we not just taking them out of the general fund? Why are we taking them out of pending contracts? Because the money we get from the state goes into the general fund. It doesn't go into any special account. It is supposed to be used for special education, and yet we're taking funds from pending contracts.
Madam President, I'll have Mr. Ratcliffe also.
Thank you. Through the President, to Member Marsett, we have to reallocate it from an existing budget line. We set our budget authority if we get more revenue or the changes in revenue. That's really where the money comes in. But we go ahead and set an upper limit in the budget authority piece. So once we've set it in those line items, we have to take it from some other line item within the budget without going back to the municipality for an upper limit increase. So if we wanted to spend more than what we've totally budgeted through the our upper limit, then we have to go back. So we just have to take it from these other set line items that are already existing, if that makes sense. We can't go ahead and increase the budget overall.
So all funds within the general fund has already been allocated to different accounts?
For this budget year.
Yeah, okay.
And this was the most unallocated fund that we could get to this right away and hire and move forward.
Okay. Just clarification.
And so just to make the full circle on this, if we didn't have this, then we would have to go back to the municipality to have a new budget approved with a new upper limit.
If the upper limit had increased.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And Madam President, we actually didn't have to technically, under board policy, make this as public, but we wanted to because of the discussions that Member Marsett had previously. So this type of movement is totally within the purview that I could have done. We just chose to put it out here publicly so that you could see it.
And I appreciate that. It's just basically clarification for me on kind of how this works.
Okay. Thank you. Is other board discussion? Seeing none, it's closed. And, we don't have any voting on this. But moving to one last chance, any other non-action items? Okay, are there any items that board members would like us to consider to be for an agenda, for a future agenda?
Yes.
Ms. Marsett?
Okay, so one of these things that I mentioned in our finance meeting, and I just want to maybe talk about it again, is at the end of each capital project, because we have some concern about transparency and if we come under budget and where those funds go, and that the public is voting on a bond for a specific amount to go to a specific project. I think that it would be beneficial if we could look at the possibility of putting that either on I know we've got the, capital project website or whatever we want to call it, but for each capital project, I think there needs to be a breakdown in showing if the project comes in under or over budget and where those funds go and how, just what happens with them. The other thing is I think also for bond capital projects, which the public is voting on, that we should also put that in the newspaper to be very transparent.
So we'll consider that for, if there's a second on that, if there's another board member that would like that to be considered for agenda discussions, in other words, be put in a work session and or on our agenda, I need to hear from a second person.
Second.
Okay.
And then the second one is, having gone to the restorative justice conference this weekend, one of the things that Fairbanks North Star School Borough is doing is they have put together, I don't want to say commission, but they put together a committee to look at disciplinary procedures or causes or types of how do I want to say this, offenses and the disciplinary consequences. And on this, they've included teachers, community, they've even got a judge on it. They've got several individuals. And I know this has been a long time coming, but the fact that we still have in our policy that students can be suspended for tardies or not coming to school, I mean, we really got to take a look at this. And I think the best way to do this is to include our community and specific individuals, and maybe start a committee on this project to come forth with proposals.
Okay. My recollection, we have already put this on the agenda for a future work session on restorative justice and discipline issues.
Yes, Madam President, the next meeting.
Yeah, so we don't need to put that on the consideration for agenda. It's coming up.
But this is a separate, I mean, this is something I'm proposing that I think would be outside of that conference of what we're talking about, because the conference we're just talking about, you know, what's going on and what are some of the things you can do. This would be actually submitting a proposal or submitting a recommendation to put this committee together so that we might start working on our disciplinary practices and changing.
Okay. Well, this part of the agenda is to take suggestions from board members for items to be put on future. And so I think since we have that on the next agenda for discussion, then that would be where either a resolution or a proposal would come forward if a board member wanted to propose that. Did you have another thing? Okay. Anything else from board members? Okay, move on to public testimony on non-agenda, non-action items. This is a second opportunity for any member of the public to speak. Is there anyone who cares to have their 3 minutes to tell the board about anything they wish? See none, closing that public testimony. And we have school board and administration comments and communications. Any board members have anything? Well, I do. I want to, I was asked to please help promote that the BP Teachers of Excellence is again open and nominations are being accepted. You'll find that information on the BP website, as well as it'll be linked shortly on the ASD website. They sent out the announcement in today's, in a news email to us today. Also wanted to compliment the School Business Partnership Organization for a very successful Leaders in the School lunch. Both Ms. Marsett and I attended last week, along with a number of principals and administrators who did exchanges with business people, and some very lively and interesting, robust discussion about the value of partnerships, the value of community engagement. So again, that's one of the 2 big annual events of the School Business Partnership, and again, it was quite successful. Also wanted to do a shout out to Campbell Elementary School. I attended their after school STEM clubs. STEM, of course, are science, technology, engineering, math club, and went to the Wolverine Park with the students where they were, these were 3rd graders who were already learning about circumference and radius in terms of making the measurements for where they're going to be having boulders placed in a circle to make a learning center in the park. And we were all, they were also learning about being dressed properly in the outdoors. And finally, about invasive species. They were discussing what the various species of trees were and which ones were invasive species and which ones they'll be working with Parks and Recs folks in the spring to remove from this new learning area in the park. So a lot of great hands-on applicable skills through this, and I very much enjoyed my time with the kids. Finally, another thank you to the Anchorage Schools Foundation. They held a reception last week. Our Chief Academic Officer, Michael Graham, was there, in addition to myself, to witness the announcement of grants to a number of Anchorage School District schools, teachers, for many wonderful projects, and a lot of gratitude and appreciation to the Community Foundation for offering this opportunity for teachers to get the funding they need to carry forth on some of these projects that they're doing with such passion. So thank you again for the foundation and for all the community members who donate to that foundation to make these grants possible. Appreciate it very much. Any further comments? Ms. Marsett.
Just a shout out, I've been to several elementary schools, and we've had discussions on pencils, and we've decided that the kids are probably eating them. But if anybody has a lot of pencils, boy, share them with your local schools.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We are adjourned.